The U.S. has once again backed the Bahraini regime despite international criticism over Manama's continuing human rights violations. Here's more.
Bahrain is a partner, and a very important one to the United States.
U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton made the remarks while welcoming Bahrain's Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa in Washington. Clinton made no reference to Saudi-backed Bahraini regime forces' brutal crackdown on anti-government protesters.
The Crown Prince of Bahrain is not only involved in torture and killing protesters, but he's also involved in huge, massive corruption. So to meet him is to endorse him.
The Bahraini Crown Prince also met with other senior U.S. officials, including President Barack Obama, to garner their support for the Persian Gulf Sheikhdom. The meetings came as Saudi-backed regime forces are pressing ahead with their crackdown on the Bahraini opposition. The repression continues despite Manama's announcement of an end to a months-long emergency law. Regime forces attacked people holding religious processions over the weekend. As part of their relentless suppression of all forms of opposition, regime forces have detained over 1,000 rights activists, medics, clerics, and political figures. They've not even spared mosques, hospitals, and schools. Hundreds of religious places have been desecrated or destroyed since the revolution began in mid-February. Despite the heavy-handed tactics, the Bahraini regime has failed to silence people who continue demanding the ouster of the ruling Al Khalifa dynasty. The United States and other Western nations have been criticized for being tight-lipped over the grave violations of human rights in Bahrain. Bahraini opposition groups have slammed Washington for what they call its double standards when it comes to its stances towards the revolutions in the Arab world. The U.S. in particular has fallen short of criticizing its major ally Saudi Arabia over its invasion of Bahrain.
These regimes always rely on brutal repression and enjoy not only the support but the armed sustaining of that repression by their sponsors in the Imperium, by the United States, by Great Britain, by the NATO powers, the U.S. in particular.
This is not the first time that the U.S. and other Western states have been moot spectators of human rights violations in the Persian Gulf region. They kept quiet when former Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein used chemical weapons in his war against Iran. A U.S. State Department document has revealed that Washington called on its Western allies to take no decision on an Iranian UN draft resolution on the use of chemical weapons by the Iraqi regime.
Iran's President Ahmedinejad says the United States wants to polarize and destabilize the Middle East and North Africa in a desperate attempt to protect its interests. Our correspondent has the details from Tehran.
The Arab Spring, the failed U.S.-led war on terror, the Palestinian issue, the U.S. plans to sabotage Pakistan's nuclear program, and call for nuclear talks between Iran and world powers were just some of the key points President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad raised Tuesday during his press conference in Tehran. On the popular uprisings in the Middle East and North Africa, the Iranian president said Tehran stands by the pro-democracy protesters. He also said Tehran has no intention to interfere in the regional country's internal affairs. Ahmadinejad said the US and its allies have failed in the so-called war on terror, and they are now desperate to knock off the balance in the Middle East in order to control the region, save their ailing economies, and protect the regime of Israel.
Press TV asked President Ahmadinejad whether Iran plans to take any legal action against the tyrant regimes of the Middle East and North Africa with regard to their harsh response to the popular uprisings.
Iran defends the legitimate rights of all nations in the Middle East and North Africa, even in Europe and the Americas. Iran will continue to do so through legal channels and international bodies.
With regard to Bahrain's revolution, Ahmadinejad said the people of Bahrain should have the right to vote freely and that the problem of Bahrain is the existence of a U.S. military base in that country.
The problem in Bahrain is not a problem between the people and the government. The problem is the presence of a U.S. military base in that country.
On the issue of Palestine, Ahmedinejad said the best solution is holding a referendum in which all Palestinians can determine their future. He also said the establishment of a Palestinian state does in no way mean the recognition of occupation. To a question on Iran's nuclear program and the latest IAEA report, Ahmedinejad said Iran's nuclear activities are being monitored by the UN nuclear watchdog and that Tehran is cooperating fully with the International Atomic Energy Agency. He said Iran is ready to hold nuclear talks with world powers, but the country would not forgo its nuclear rights under the NPT. Anbar Naderi, Press TV, Tehran.